Hello, welcome to You Talk, another episode, and in this one, we are asking the question of self-sufficiency for Australia. Horst, take it away.
Whenever we start a topic with the question of, you sort of expect it to be loaded. Historic examples include the question of the Jews. And we all know how that ended up. Let's not. Thankfully, self-sufficiency can be considerably less loaded. Now, right now, Kyle, you and I are talking over Zoom, yeah?
Yep.
Do you know where Zoom is actually located as a company?
No, I don't. Where are they located?
Okay. They're located in San Jose, in California. And just aside from the fact that they're in the US, I would like to point out that this means that a good solid earthquake would just wreck them for a few days. It's not a particularly stable bit of the US, geologically speaking.
Hmm.
Now, if we have a look at where Zoom has servers, that's all over the world, despite the fact that they're a US firm. This might be related to the fact that if they didn't have servers elsewhere, a good earthquake would wreck their service for a few weeks. Now, why should we care about this, given we're in Australia? Can you think of a reason, Kyle?
Well, so Zoom is kind of like a piece of infrastructure in my mind. It is like an internet service that we're using to communicate with each other and to do this show.
Yeah.
That being
that's what I'm
said,
getting at.
if the infrastructure for that goes down, then we can't do that. So, it's I mean the broader I guess point being made here seems to be if if a piece of infrastructure or a supply chain breaks down or is broken in some sort of way or delayed for an extended period of time, then we lose the ability that granted. And that is a problem for more essential things, more essential resources, goods. Take we're actually just talking before. Take grain in Ukraine getting to countries like I think Egypt and a few other countries in that sort of general region.
Even here, believe it or not.
I don't know too much about grain trade between Australia and Ukraine. Why don't you take us through that and sort of finish your point?
Well, I was actually going to deal with a slightly different facet that is nonetheless related to conflict. Ukraine has a lot of farmland. That could be part of the reason, in fact, why Russia has seen fit to try and bring it back into the happy family that is the former Soviet Union. And Ukraine has historically exported a lot of grain, including wheat, worldwide. Those of you paying attention to Australian news may have recalled that we've had a few little trade spats with China regarding the exports and imports of certain goods. I think we were actually sending them wheat, which they didn't want to pay large amounts of money for because we were publicly not quite criticizing, but asking questions about some of their policies.
Yeah, it started when ScoMo, in a very rash way, said that we need an inquiry into the origins of COVID. I think he asked, led by the UN, was what he was proposing. It's in a way it's not the worst idea, but I think part of the problem was the way he presented it. But that aside, as you were saying.
Yeah. Let's look at what's happening in Russia and the Ukraine at the moment as an example of what could happen to us. There are a lot of services, infrastructure services based in the US or in Europe that have now barred all Russian users because, well, if you don't already know what Russia is doing, I don't believe that either myself or Kyle can help you. But suffice it to say that they've made a lot of people very angry. There are sanctions against exporting certain things to them. Per the ITAR right now, we're not allowed to export aluminium to Russia, just in case they want to use it in planes or tanks or something. Just in case. And this could have been avoided if Russia had their own internal tools and their own manufacturing capabilities that hadn't been lost to chunks of the Soviet Union that broke away and became their own countries. But back to Australia.
Actually being Ukraine with manufacturing, because a lot of their manufacturing was actually weapons manufacturing was in Ukraine. And after the Soviet Union broke up, Ukraine eventually became a fairly major supplier of weapons, if I remember correctly, to China.
And to Russia.
And to Russia.
So just whoops.
Yeah.
But we're in Australia. We're not in the Soviet Union. I don't think we were really ever going to be offered membership, even when that was a thing. Somehow a little bit too American for their tastes. A large amount of our electronic goods are manufactured in Southeast Asia. We import food from Europe, from Ukraine, from the US. We import most of our clothing. Basically, anything you buy off the shelf in Kmart was manufactured in Bangladesh. The labor's cheap, the sewing machines are plentiful. It's a match made in heaven, right? But what happens if someone gets annoyed at us? What happens when we face sanctions? This is why I want to touch on self-sufficiency, and we both have some ideas on this, but I'd like to start with Kyle's because we're both in very different areas. So Kyle, tell us about the Murray-Darling and how it is a key part of Australia actually being self-sufficient.
Yeah, I'm
getting in there.
I did not know you were about to ask me that. Thank you. Okay, so this for our lovely viewers, of which I'm sure there will be many by now, this is very much I won't shut up about this. It's my baby. So I've envisioned in the Murray-Darling a huge development strategy, and that would make us self-sufficient in so many ways, and also would solve a bunch of major challenges that we're facing. It would buy us time in the fight against climate change. It would stabilize the Murray-Darling's water supplies, and it would solve the housing crisis, and also make us self-sufficient when it comes to manufacturing.
I'd also just like to quote, was it Morrison who did this? Jobs and growth. Jobs and growth.
I think it's the Liberal Party in general now, but I think it started with Abbott. In
any case, we can get some jobs and we can get some growth.
Yes. My rough estimates put it at about 13% growth to the economy from this one project alone. That being said, it is a massive project. So here's what it is: Murray-Darling Economic Development Strategy. Build high-speed rail.
Not the entire thing, just the self-sufficiency bit. But I must say that as an autistic person, I am on board with anything that brings us more trains.
Okay. Real quickly. So the strategy basically it restructures water management. It provides easy access from the coast to the Murray-Darling. Imagine getting anywhere in the Murray-Darling. Like the longest trip was like Brisbane to Renmark, which is in the Murray-Darling, which is like right near where the Murray-Darling river system flows out to the ocean. That's less than 3 hours. So getting to the center of the Murray-Darling is something like it's under 2 hours. So very fast access. And then we build cities in the Murray-Darling, and we make them manufacturing centers as well as centers for things like grain collection, where and collection of agricultural produce, where they'll then be transported through those through that high-speed rail to other cities. Essentially, we're connecting a large portion of our nation into the largest and most important river system we have, and then interconnecting that river system and building new cities there, where there'll be centers of manufacturing, so there'll be plenty of job opportunities, and also manufacturing. And with a new water management plan, will stabilize the health of the Murray-Darling, leading to much more stable agricultural output. And so all of that will make us much more self-sufficient and solve all those problems I described earlier.
Part of that water management plan would also mean deprioritizing costly but economically incentivized crops. Like, we do not need that much cotton if we're just exporting 80% of it. We don't.
Yes.
That money can support food production.
Yeah,
we could have our own breadbasket right here.
I mean, we are actually in part the breadbasket for Southeast Asia already. They to some degree depend on us, and we could expand on that, be more self-sufficient. Not need pretty much any food imports except for more specialized items that don't grow as much in Australia due to climate reasons.
I'm just glaring at you in like import German beer and import Japanese ramen and import like smoked meats. Like,
and here I was just thinking avocados.
Do not come for my luxury goods. I will end you.
I will. Look, I will not. I promise I won't. All right, I promise. You can keep that stuff. But overall, though, these would be new centers of manufacturing. We depend on one country, Taiwan. The entire world depends on it for something like 85% of the world's microchips. That's and they create the best microchips.
Is where it's at.
Yeah, and they create the best microchips. Like, the quality is great, but we can't depend on one country for that.
Especially not if China decides that it is finally the time to unify.
Yes, which I mean, look, to be honest, I have my doubts about whether or not they really think that, at least in the short term. I know there are a lot of war hawks that are saying that, but that's a whole other topic, which we will get into in another video at some point. But yeah, in terms of
I don't actually want semiconductor manufacturing in the Murray-Darling. I just don't, because the amount of industrial runoff that you produce, it would be devastating to the agriculture. But we do have plenty of other land that we could use to build up our manufacturing capabilities.
And this network, like, we could expand it, and it could reach even other parts of Australia, where we could put new towns and cities where we could put semiconductor manufacturing and other things. It's an expansion in infrastructure that allows us to be more self-sufficient over not just like the long term, 20 years from now, but the very, very long term, going out to 150 years. One of the reasons
I'm saying
Rome,
is,
if I could just
semiconductor manufacturing in Byron Bay.
Maybe that actually sounds. I'll think about that later. Because we're basically out of time. But Rome, basically, one of the reasons why Rome was the long, like, a really long-lasting empire. One of the reasons why it was so successful, particularly in the earlier days, which is basically around half its history, was because they took the very long-term view of legacy. We are committing ourselves to something that we will not see the end of. We are building something that will last well into the future, that we will not see the zenith of. And so, we could, if we took a similar view to that, looked out to 150 years from now, then this project, this development strategy continues to allow for better development and more self-sufficiency, even up to 150 years out from now. Now
And
we've run out of time.
unlimited power.
We've run out of time, so we'll leave it there. But thank you for watching. I hope this has given you some food for thought, especially because it was my favorite subject in the world to not shut up about.
And I'm just hoping that this plan gives us some food for our stomachs.
Yes. All right. Catch you later.
Take care, all.